Hello and welcome to No Nay Never podcast and YouTube show. I'm your host, Natalie Bromley. And this week we are looking back at that deserved point. Should it have been three? It was only a point away at the City Ground for Notts Forest. We are, of course, going to be talking about those key controversial points. Was it a handball? Was it a red card? Should we, Clarets, have come away with their first win of the season? Well, it wasn't to be, and we are here to talk you through that. We also look at the impact that some of our old guard players had coming back into the game and what was now going to happen losing Lyle Foster for 3 games. So, without further ado, here we go. So let's get cracking. I am, of course, joined in the studio by Rich Steele, our regular panelist. Rich, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Natalie. How are you? Hello, viewers.
Good, thank you. Good to hear. And finally, earning his supper. It's been a while for a bit. It's been skiving. We've dragged resident FPL expert and regular panelist, well, irregular panelist, Adam Dennett into the studio as well. Hi, Adam. Nice of you to join us.
Hello. Yeah, it's nice to be talking about real football rather than the fantasy stuff for a change.
Well, we do keep telling you to come on, but you're always busy. So we've had to drag you on tonight and say, oi, come and earn your keep. Lots to talk about, and we are obviously in a very good shape because both of you were at the City Ground last night, seeing things in live action and reacting in the ground.
And sat next to each other.
And sat next to each other. So we had a real live.
So it was nice, yeah. And
so what about all the material that you should have sent me last night of you two together?
Well, sorry, but yeah, I'm bad with that. Yeah, Adam elbowed me straight in the nose when the second goal went in, and it was all for nothing. So
I thought you were joking about this. Did this actually happen?
Yeah, straight bang, straight in the nose. Yeah, genuinely, I'm not joking. Yeah.
I think that's where I got the idea
from. My nose was running for until all evening.
So
I wonder why you left so quickly afterwards.
I know, I'm not surprised. Do we need to send that footage to Statman Dave and get him to rule on whether we
listen? If there's VAR, Adam's getting sent off and he's banned for the United game.
That's it. We're gonna give Adam a 3-match ban from a 3-episode ban from the episode. I love it. Okay, well let's what a start. Let's make a start then. And I think I'm just gonna we know what we're gonna talk about. Of course, we know what we're gonna talk about. But I want to concentrate on some of the positives before we get into our annoyance at certain decisions that were made last night and certain actions as well. It's not all hard done by. We saw 2 sides of the coin last night. Clarets, of course, they got off to a flying start again, scoring early, relatively early, and going ahead, and we managed to get a point on the board drawing away at Forest. It takes us off the bottom of the table and gets our first points on the board, and should have been 3, but it, let's not dwell on that for now. But there were changes to the squad. There were changes to where we played. There were changes to the starting lineup. There was a change in the where we pressed and the line that we drew when we were playing. Reliance on some of the old guard as well, just to tighten up that performance. Let's come to you first, Rich. I think despite a challenging start, so I think probably the first 20 minutes I was starting to feel like our season's not going as well as we hoped it would if we weren't getting the better of Forest here. Turned out to be a spectacular performance by the Clarets and one we should be hugely encouraged by. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought you summed it up well. The first 20 minutes we were sloppy on the ball, kept giving the ball away. We seemed a little bit nervy. And, if we conceded in that first 20 minutes, it would have been a case of, the same's happened again. We're a little bit architects of our own downfall. But at the same time, you've got to take the rough with the smooth a little bit. When we do play that way, me and Adam were just saying, the pace of the Premier League, is so much faster. When you've got the ball at the back and in midfield, you don't get the same time as you do in the Championship. I don't know if it come across that way on the TV, but the atmosphere was absolutely electric. I've got to say, it was the best atmosphere I've been involved in a while from home and away fans. Your hair's looking lovely, by the way, Natalie. Just grooming it
Do you
all.
know
I just
what?
want to
So
say it's
I
been
knew full
distracting me,
well.
but it's looking
I'm
lovely.
so sorry, but I didn't have a chance to brush it before I came on air, and I knew full well when I was doing that edit that I was going to put you on a standalone camera so that you didn't see me. And now he's just completely busted me to all of our listeners. Carry on, talk about the football, ignore my hair.
Yeah, no, it's a great atmosphere anyway. And I said to Adam, in a lot of football games, especially away from home, keep it tight for the first 20 minutes. The crowd naturally subdues a little bit. The opposition team and on with the home team, they can't keep the same intensity up. And slowly but surely, we grew into the game. We kept feeding the ball to Koleosho, who first half yesterday was absolutely
So
electric.
good.
Or, a 19-year-old kid, and he's getting better and better. When we all signed him, we kind of thought, well, he'll be in and around the squad. Might played under 23s and whatnot. There wasn't a lot of fanfare, and by God, he's exciting. That front three we've got in Foster, Amdouni, or we did have last night, and Koleosho, they really couldn't cope with them. Like I said, and we grew into the game, and I thought it was a really good performance. Away from the VAR, we should have won. But overall, I actually felt a point was a fair result. I thought it was a really good team. I thought it was a really good game. Two teams wanted to win. I thought attacks were better than defenses for both teams. Not quite, maybe a little bit of lack of cutting edge in the final third from both teams. And that's probably the difference in playing your likes of Forest and, maybe your Tottenhams and maybe your real elite sides in the Premier League, is that you don't maybe get punished as much. But, I don't want to talk too much about every aspect of the game. And I think bringing in, likes of Brownhill, Taylor, we didn't quite press as high. We didn't quite press as aggressively at times. We stayed in a better shape. So I think we had a lot more balance to the side with still having an attacking threat. Fair play to Kompany. He's obviously wanting to play this way of, kind of a centre back, a full back, and really pressing high. And I think he's had to swallow his pride and his ego a little bit and go back to basics. So fair play to Kompany as well last night.
Yeah, definitely. So no, that's a really good introduction. There's a lot of points in there that obviously we do need to cover, but I think you've covered there pretty much how most of us were thinking. I definitely, Adam, had some nervousness about the game last night just because it was the first fixture of the season where it wasn't a free pass for us. It wasn't oh well, it doesn't matter if we lose these, we're going to lose anyway. It was a game that if we'd have lost, starts eating into that bank of winnable games that you have to try and start clawing your points. And you need to get 10 wins in the Premier League if you're going to survive. Not many sides survive if they don't get those 10 wins. As it turned out, a point away from home, I think, was a really good point. And the result is a far worse result for Forest than it is for us. If you do think that Forest will flirt with the bottom of the table for most of the season, they need to be winning their home games against the sides around them that they consider to be winnable games. So that's 2 points dropped for them. I think if that had been at Turf Moor, we'd have been annoyed that we didn't win. And I think that, I don't know whether or not you felt the same, Adam, in terms of getting more confidence that we can compete with the bottom half sides of the division.
Yeah, I think we went into the season hoping that we would be able to, and like you said, I think that the Luton game being postponed has obviously made it a lot more difficult for us to judge after the first three games, where we've said about Kompany experimenting. This is the first time where you looked at the lineup and I think everyone was in agreement that you could see what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
And I felt confident for the first time. Obviously, the opposition helps that. But yeah, I think the performance I've come out of the game a lot more confident than I went into it. I think Forest, they got they might be disappointed with a point at the end of the day, but I don't think they can argue with it on the balance of play and obviously the decision at the end. And given that they've gone and got a bit of a bonus win away at Chelsea, that probably evens itself out a bit, and I think they'll be all right. They've got a lot more depth in the squad than they had last year, and I think there's definitely three worse sides than them. But yeah, we were excellent. Taylor, just what everyone wanted.
Well,
really,
stick with him, Adam, because that's where I was going to next. I was going to keep you on this to talk about Taylor. It was the decision we all wanted, wasn't it? We knew that we messed up with our left back. We knew that we put all of our eggs in a Maatsen-shaped basket, which just didn't pay off. And there was some frustration among Burnley fans that, fine, these things happen. We shouldn't have left it to the last minute. We shouldn't have, not had a plan B, but we did. At least don't compound that problem by playing square pegs in round holes. So did you get from Charlie Taylor what we hoped we would do, putting him back in?
Oh, absolutely. We're typical Charlie Taylor performance, other than he's not got the license to bomb down the wing and swing horrible crosses in anymore. But yeah, solid as ever. Solid as ever. Really, Elanga, I think, other than the first 20 minutes, which we've touched on, where we were a bit below par all the way across the pitch, and we're probably fortunate we didn't go behind with some of the situations we let them into, even though I think they only had one shot on target in that time. Other than that, I don't think Elanga caused him any problems at all on that side. And that was with Koleosho obviously bombing on ahead of him. We didn't really look exposed that badly at any point. And it were everything that you'd want from Taylor in that performance coming back in. They were chanting his name at the end. There were some real strong performers across the pitch, but for me, he were the man of the match.
Oh, wow. High praise indeed. I was going to follow up that with a question of asking you whether or not he now keeps that shirt until the January transfer window. I'm assuming that's a yes.
It is for me.
Definitely. On top of that as well, Rich, we obviously saw Gudmundsson and Brownhill finally make an appearance. It's been a bit of a strange one with Brownhill. I wasn't quite sure why he'd lost his place and why he just didn't seem to feature at all in the early part of the season. We've talked privately off air in our chats before we produce each of these shows, and I did question whether Company had perhaps used the 3 opening fixtures as free passes and as an extension of the pre-season. They were free hits. We were probably going to lose if we played our best team. So was he perhaps using that to trial different formations and trial different players in different positions? And looking at the likes of Brownhill and Taylor and going, well, I know you. I know what you can do. I don't need to trial you. I'll just bring you back in when it's done. It's a bit of a Bromley conspiracy theory. But Brownhill again last night just added something extra in that midfield that I feel like we were missing against the first 3 sides.
Yeah, I personally don't feel like we approached it as free hits. I think we wanted to go into the games winning them. I think Company would always do that, and I think he's. And I wouldn't say they're an extension of like pre-season, if you will. I just think he's tried a formation, thinking it's a Premier League, maybe try something a bit different, and it's just not quite worked against some of your better teams. I think you've seen where it could work in aspects of the games, but ultimately it was a little bit naive. I can understand why Brownhill didn't play against Man City and maybe against Villa. Obviously Berge for me has got a higher ceiling than somebody like Brownhill. And I think he's got more in his locker as a player. But I think every team needs a Brownhill in it who, does the hard work, covers down every blade of grass. And he has got better on the ball. And I think Cullen looked a lot more comfortable being next to Brownhill last night.
Definitely.
And Cullen's been anonymous in the first 3 games, and I thought he got on the ball a little bit more. I still think he's got a bit of improvement to do, if I'm being honest. But like I said, the Premier League is a lot quicker. Yeah. But like I said, I think Brownhill is one of those players sometimes when he's playing game after game after game after game, he gets lost a little bit, and all of a sudden you take him out the team and you realise, do you know what? He is an important player for us.
Yeah.
I think like there was an example last season away at Blackpool. He went off with an injury early on, and then we didn't look the same. And then I don't think he played for a couple of games afterwards. And I think we had a spell of drawing away at Rotherham. We may have drew away at Reading, I think. And he is one of those players where you kind of like, you know what? You realise how important he is when he's not in the team. And I thought he did a great job. And like I said, just having Gudmundsson in, again, he's maybe not got the flair of a Benson, a Zaruri, or even a Trezor, but he just does a really solid job. He's really clever on the ball. When you're under pressure, he can give the ball to his feet. He doesn't give away. So I think having those 3 in the side, I don't think it's just the personnel. I think it's our setup. For example, Roberts looked a lot more comfortable on the right. Roberts wasn't going pressing silly positions too high up from goal kicks and whatnot. So I think the whole team just looked a lot more structured and balanced. But
He
Josh, I
still
think
had
you've
a
been
bit
a
of
great.
freedom, didn't he? I still like this. It was more of a controlled freedom last night, but he did still have a bit of a wander to Connor Roberts, and he did get himself.
Yeah, he went into midfield and whatnot. It's not something I'm particularly keen on. I said to Adam last night, I felt there was times when we got the ball out wide, and then because Roberts wasn't out wide, we had to go back into the middle and then recycle back out to the centre half a little bit. Again, you understand the logic. You want to overload the midfield. It's not my cup of tea, but that's personal preference. But just one thing with Brown, I think he's been great for us. But Jesus, how he keeps getting on those set pieces. He hit his first two corners, he hit straight at the goalie. And the second one was when they countered attacked, got a corner, and they should have scored to make it 1-0 from that set piece. And just like, you've got like Gudmundsson, or like
get him off him. Come
like,
on.
I don't get me wrong, he didn't take every corner, but I just don't understand why he's even on them in the slightest. But that's my only gripe with Brownell. I think he's not the complete footballer, but I think we're a better team when he's in it. And Berge looked a different player in that more advanced midfield role.
Stay with that. That's where I'm going.
So,
Stay with that, Rich, because that's what I'm coming on to next. You've already mentioned him, and I want you to expand on that. That is absolutely his role. He was the role that he played in that first couple of games. It just did not work at all. But last night, well, we saw from the goal he created anyway. But he caused chaos, absolute chaos.
Yeah, he just looked more comfortable. He looked more free. Certain players, they don't want that defensive responsibility almost about worrying what's going around them. And I think we've seen glimpses in the first half against Tottenham and the second half against Villa, what Berge can do. And when he come on, he was absolutely superb. I think when he come on, we was at a point in the game where he was on the back foot, and him coming on and his energy and his thrust, to drive us up the pitch really made a difference. We've never had that in the Premier League, a midfielder who can drive forward and get in behind defences. And I think what's really good for us, I think Berge will operate in that role. We've got two number 10s in Amdouni and Berge who are very different but very effective.
Yeah.
Amdouni's, more of a link-up player, takes the ball on the half turn, can dribble past players, maybe got more of a goal in him, where Berge is more somebody who'll play in that 10 role, a bit like Lampard used to do for Chelsea, and really bomb on, get in behind defences. So I think Berge is one, when the game opens up, he'll be more of he'll be really effective for us when we've got that space to drive into. That doesn't mean he can't be a starter, but I think it's really nice that we've got two completely different options in that number 10 role.
Building that squad and building those positions apart from left back, but we are doing absolutely.
Yeah.
Adam, then a quick word before we talk on to the main talking points from the game. Let's start picking out the goals. I mean, I'm not sure I've seen Burnley playing that kind of football for the goal, for our goal. It's not the first one, the real goal. Just Koleosho, the strength and just the tenacity that he showed on that wing he refused to let a ball go. Foster with the accidental assist, which it had to happen for it to go. And then Amdouni's goal was just everybody. You could feel the shock in the studio from people watching. The commentators were very much like, what is like, they didn't know how to react to it. And this is the kind of football that I wanted us to show the Premier League this season when we talk about the evolution of this side and how this team it's not the side that you last saw in the Premier League. And it's so exciting.
Yeah, and I said to Rich at half-time, we'd shown so much flair with Koleosho and Amdouni, and you run out of superlatives of how fearless they are, and just how strong we look on the front foot now, that I took a step back and you realise Zaroury's not on the pitch, Benson's not on the pitch, and they were like the biggest creative threats last season. You talk about us being, we're not a new side again. It's the same brand that we saw last year, but we've got even more depth, we've got even more options. And I didn't know who Amdouni or Koleosho were a couple of months ago, and they fit in straight away. Even when we struggled at the back and obviously been conceding goals, they've been, for me, the bright spark of every game. And against a team that were going to be able to compete with, they looked a level above, which was really good to see and made me feel a lot more positive about it. And like Rich said, I think JBG, you don't get the creativity, but when we did come back into the game, he just don't give the ball away. And you weren't getting Amdouni were going and supporting him, and it's a really good balance. I think we'll obviously come on to what we'll do against Man United with Foster out and Trezor obviously coming and having a good impact. But the options we've got at the top end of the pitch, and the first goal, like you said, we've not scored many goals like that in the Premier League. Probably no goals like that in the Premier League. The technique to keep that volley down, never mind put it on a sixpence in the corner, just absolutely fantastic. And he'd done it about 5 minutes before. I'm not sure if that were on his left or right foot. He's so tricky. He can
Left
do
it was, I think.
hit with either,
Yeah.
and
Just
turn
went
it, got
slightly
down
over,
and saved
yeah.
it. And I thought that were in as soon as he hit the first one. So it was real joy to see that second one nestled just before half time. It were. And I thought thoroughly deserved at that point for the way we'd come back into the game. We were on the front foot. So
yeah,
fantastic
definitely.
to watch.
Yeah, it really was. Now, on the other side of the pitch, Rich, we obviously it was a battle of the worldies yesterday. 2 incredible goals. It was disappointing to concede, but it's probably indicative of the improvements that we had made in defence and how much more solid we looked, that it did take a strike of that calibre to concede. And I don't think Forest looked particularly threatening other than that goal either. 2 questions then. Is there any learning points for our defence to try and avoid that, or is it just the unavoidable worldie? And secondly, what do we do in terms of improving that defence to make sure that we do get back to looking as solid as we used to? Because defence is the part of the pitch where we're not as comfortable yet as we are sort of forward midfield.
Yeah, I think just going back to what you said about looking more comfortable, I think hopefully now moving forward, we can keep that settled back 4 of, your Taylor Roberts, Aldakiel and Bayer. I think Bayer grew into the game as he started a bit shaky, grew into the game. Aldakiel was and he will be, he was completely, I'm not going to say this in a harsh way, but he didn't know what he was doing at fullback when he's played there this season. And you look at him at centre-back and he's an absolute Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
The goal was a fantastic strike. I thought Hudson-Odoi was the best player on the night. Obviously, he's a player who was talented with, we've moved to Bayern. Adam said to me last night, moved to Bayern Munich for big money. Obviously, Chelsea being the absolute mess that it is, he's probably been a bit of a victim of that. And, when you watch some of the plays for Chelsea, like that Mudryk, who they played all that money for and that, and, when you watch Hudson-Odoi, you're kind of thinking, what's gone on there? He was really good last night. And listen, if you concede a goal like that, you just hold your hands up and go, good goal, get the ball back on the centre spot and go again. And that's exactly what we did last night. I thought we kind of give Forest a little bit more space out wide. And, I kind of said, right, you can cross the ball in and we'll try and deal with it. And I thought we did that well. But Trafford didn't have loads to do, but I think he did look more solid. He gathered everything he had to. His passing was good. He went long when we had to as well. So, yeah, I agree with you, Natalie, there. And a good friend of mine is a Forest fan. And he was kind of saying, I was getting to the point where I didn't think we was going to score. And, when they scored a worldie, it's one of them. It
an
happens,
annoying league for that. Yeah.
And it's frustrating. And that's the big difference in the Premier League and the Championship. You have those individual moments of quality that can just punish you. So, it's frustrating. Nobody likes conceding a goal, but at times you just got to hold your hands up and say, fair play, it was a great strike.
And that's obviously why we've traditionally been very much priced out of the market for players who can score those goals in the Premier League, because we simply can't. That's why they cost the millions and millions that they do, because they can produce moments like that when the rest of the team is struggling. And I think when you look at Amdouni and you think he was 2.6 million, and he is able to produce that skill against some of the sides outside of the top powerful sides in the division, he's going to be a huge asset. And this is why we need to be really aware of the strategy that the board and company are deploying in terms of finding these talent early It might come at a detriment in that it takes us a little bit longer to build. It might result in a little bit of a up and down relegation promotion period. But the value that those players will have when they get to full strength and they get to their peak times is incredible. Right, let's do it. Let's rip the sticking plaster off. The decision, the first of the two decisions of the night. Incredible assist and strength and skill from Sander Berge to put the ball in, to get away from his man, put the ball in for Lyle Foster to break that net. Everybody is saying to us that was a harsh decision. I don't even know where to start. Rich, I guess, what are we looking at for this? It's for it to be, there's various elements to this. Was this a deliberate handball? Was there a clear and obvious error that needed to be overlooked? Was it even a handball in the first place? I guess taking each of those elements in turn, where do you sit with the controversy? Were we robbed or not?
Well, I think the answer to all three is no. I think that's pretty obvious, isn't it? And I think I'm always one of them, I'm kind of thinking, rather than what I think, before I try and make an emotional decision, right? What are the rules? What are the rule changes on this? It's like the one with Zaruri. People are saying, "Oh, it's not a yellow," but it is, because that's the rule now, whether you like it or not. The rule this year for handball is that there's got to be a deliberate action, to handball. They've upped the threshold or supposedly, and the noise from the VAR is that the assistant referee has said that it's a deliberate action from Berge to hand the ball, and obviously Rob Jones has agreed with it. He was always going to agree. The little mates in tandem, aren't they? You heard Mike Dean talking about he didn't want to, overturn a decision because he didn't want his mate to look bad. Every single person in that ground, every single person out of that 30,000, including the 22 players on the pitch, thought it was a goal. You could see by the way the Forest players lined up, they weren't expecting it all. Even when the VAR review was going on, they were still expecting it. And if football's getting that way, as we're saying, it was such a good game last night. The atmosphere was fantastic. I had a walk around Nottingham city centre and around the ground. A real great evening.
Yeah, it really
football club. And we're going away and everybody's talking about this VAR decision. Where I am with VAR, I've said it for a long time. I've said it in our WhatsApp group. I've said it on Twitter. I do not like it at all. If that decision went for us last night, you would have gone, that's just nonsense. Yeah. And you've got to, when we're doing these podcasts, we've got, and Burnley fans, if we're mourning last night about the decision, and rightly so, we've then got to be not biased enough to call it out when a decision goes forwards, because there will be a decision that goes forwards, and that's what football. So. That's what football fans have got to do. They can't just go, "Oh, it happened to my team. VAR is great." No, they've got to make a stand for it. I don't go watching football to wait in a stadium I'm going to swear here, for a bullshit decision to happen. I don't drive 4 hours, get home late at night, be tired all day in work to have a nonsense decision by clowns who are officiating our game, who are making rules up in a studio to ruin the passion of football. And that is what's happening at the moment. Football is for the fans, and it's being run at the moment all the way through by people who are ruining the game. They're not thinking of the fans. They're thinking about greed. They're thinking about money. Every decision is being made to help the big clubs at the moment. And I'm not saying Forest are necessarily a big club, and it probably could have gone our way yesterday, but that is ruining football. Yeah, everybody celebrated that goal. Nobody would have batted an eyelid. This isn't us being biased. VAR is taking the emotion out of football. And what's frustrating me, they're looking for that 1 millisecond, for that one slight click to disallow goals in football now.
That's what VAR has become. It's become a tool to disallow goals.
Exactly. And for me, if VAR is going to be in, it should be for the clear and obvious. Foster, red card, bang, get him off. He was silly. Yeah. A clear penalty where somebody chops someone down, fine. An offside, which is a yard offside, and an official miss, then that's fine. But for these decisions where it's just not handball, it's never been handball in the 150-year history of football. And it's not that just it's cost us 3 points and I'm whinging as a Burnley fan. it's ruining football as a spectacle for a lot of people who go and attend the sport live.
Well, I've been saying this for a long time. That is the problem. VAR is turning football into a technically perfect televised sport for a global audience. It has no desire to help the fan on the ground. It doesn't care about loyalty. It doesn't care about the impact that it has. It just wants to make sure that it is seen to be a technically perfect sport. And I think that the point about being the emphasis now on finding the goals to rule them out, they are too frightened of allowing a goal that could be criticised that they are now just defaulting to try and rule every goal out unless it's perfect, unless there's literally absolutely nothing that you can say. And it's just, it's having a really bad impact on everything. Adam, I probably should have known that Rich would absolutely nail that. I'm not really sure what else he got, but I'm going to give the floor to you as well, because it's a passionate subject. It's one that we all deserve to have a floor to say our piece. So I'm going to let you take the floor as well. I'm not sure if there's anything else that you can add to that. That was a spectacular monologue. But what, you know, is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, I completely agree with Rich there. It's not a deliberate act. If he's got any understanding of the game, it's just, there's no way that's a deliberate handball. And like Rich said, when he gets sent to the screen, he gets the still of the ball next to his arm, and they don't go against it anyway. You hope that they're going to do, but the one thing I probably would say is, as much as it needs sorting out, and there is more noise about it now. There's been a lot of ex-referees and players on social media today kicking off, which will probably just get an apology at best, which isn't great, and it might
we'll get that
anyway. But I think the experience in the ground needs to be made so much better in terms of the communication of it as well. Rich has nailed the main points there, but it's even worse for the fan. We ain't got a clue. We're sat there and you just get a little quick image on the screen and then it's gone. There's got to be the comms between the ref and the VAR and a better fan experience, because we pay the money to go to the stadium, watch the games, and you just it flattened everyone after that in that away end. It killed it. And like I said, it were absolutely.
We don't have a voice though, Adam. We don't have a voice.
It's still a good point at the end of the day. Any point on the road is a good point in the Premier League, but you couldn't help just every few minutes just get a wave of disappointment hit me, what could have been and what were taken away from us with that. Because like Rich said, you celebrate goals knowing that there could be something, but that goal, you watch that, there's just nothing there.
No. I mean, the irony of this as well is that I'm not entirely sure that the experience of the televised fan is any different. I didn't get a ticket for the game last night, so I watched it on the TV. And when they said it was a VAR, I'd run around the house. I was absolutely cheering. And then it says it's a VAR review, and I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, what for? The commentators couldn't say what for initially. They were like, we're looking at some infringement here. So then you've got a few seconds where you're waiting to know this. You know, they're looking for a handball. Then they do some replays. And we were sat watching on television going, oh no, this is fine. This is going to be a given. And when they turned around and sent it to the monitor, we were genuinely like, are you kidding me? Like, no.
Clear and obvious doesn't exist anymore, does it? It's not clear and obvious areas. I'm sick of hearing that. And if people say that to us, I'm just going to push back on it because it's just not going to happen. Yeah.
I think as well, so yes, I think that's the irony of it. They're trying to make this technically perfect game, that the experience isn't there for the televised fan either. And if they are the audience that they are trying to impress with this ridiculous set of rules, and I'm not entirely sure that we're going to, you know, that they're going to achieve that anyway. But yeah, I'm the same as you, Adam. Like today, I've just been very frustrated and kind of gone, oh, you know, this is so annoying that would happen. And plus as well, you mentioned earlier about one of you did, apologies, I can't remember which one it was, about a slightly neutral position for Forest because they got bonus points against Chelsea, whereas they dropped points against us, so it's evened itself out. Actually, it doesn't. It's much more important than that. Getting 3 bonus points off a side you're not expected to win isn't the same as losing 3 points against a side that you're competing with at the bottom, because if you win that game, you're also you're removing their points from it. So us beating Forest last night has a much greater impact than just getting a bonus point. It's really, really important in terms of the balance of the goals and the balance of points and the games left to play at the bottom of the league. So we do need to be mindful of that, just to add to that frustration. So moving on then to the second VAR ruling that went against us last night. This one is a little less controversial and is more a consideration about potentially the discipline in our side. Of course, a red card for Lyle Foster, who ended up giving quite a meaty elbow into the Forest defender's chest. I don't really think we can have, and going back to your point, Rich, what we were talking about, we can't really have any complaints about that one. I'm not really sure what he was thinking or how he thought he was going to get away with that, but pretty uncontroversial red card in the end, that one.
Yeah, I think it was just purely down to frustration from the goal being disallowed. You know,
You think so?
Yeah, 100%. You know, players are human beings. You know, we forget that the human beings have the same emotions, the same ups and downs as us. You know, Foster comes across quite a mild character, but I think to be a professional footballer at that level, you know, possibly where he's come from too in his background, you've got to have a bit of fire in his belly. And me and Adam were saying he was playing against like Worrell and McKenna, and he held the ball up well, he fought all game. And for me, you know, he was being tugged as well in the build up to that, you know, and he's just got frustrated. He's got the better of him, and he's giving one. And not that I'm condoning it, by the way, you shouldn't do it, especially at that level. You know, we're going to miss him now for 2 league games, 1 cup game. You know, we'll really miss him in league games, especially. And he's a bit. Matson did something a little bit similar against Blackpool last season. Obviously, Foster's a little bit older, but you've just got to learn from these things, and can understand why he's done it. But he shouldn't have done it. And you know what? If you're going to give someone an elbow, at least do it properly. And he's done that.
Yeah, don't get banned for a really
stupid decision. If he's banged, he's done it. But listen, I don't like VAR. As I mentioned before, I wouldn't have it in the game. But you know, for decisions like that, that's where it does come in handy, because that's difficult for the. Yeah, but it's the play's gone a little bit, hasn't it? So the officials, unless they've got eyes in the back of the head, they're not going to stop that one. So I think everyone's on board. Use VAR for that, but when you're using it for nonsense decisions like that, and ball and ruling, trying to find everything, trying to find every reason to rule a goal out, that's where it's not used correctly, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's right. It does leave us with a little bit of a frustrating dilemma, Adam, in that our probably most informed player at the moment is now going to be out for 3 games. He's going to miss United, Chelsea, and Luton. Especially is particularly frustrating. He
won't miss Luton.
Oh,
no,
wow.
He won't. Yeah.
Why?
He's played Salford in the cup.
Oh, excellent. Oh, I didn't even realise this. So, of course. Oh, brilliant. Okay, well, that's great then. So he just misses United and Chelsea, so that's fine. But still, now
Newcastle, I think. Yeah.
Is it?
Sorry. It's United and Newcastle.
Oh, do we play United, Newcastle, Luton, then Chelsea? Sorry, I got my fixtures the wrong way around. Okay.
Yeah.
But even so, that was a really great segment. It's like, you know what, listeners, it's going to miss a few games. I don't know what they are, but hey, we'll analyse it anyway. Why not? But certainly in terms of out of the tough fixtures that we had in the early part of the season, these were 2 which is a really great time to play them. United and Newcastle are not playing well in these early stages of the season, and we would have wanted our strongest players, particularly a striker in form, to play there. We've not got him. Nothing we can do about that now. So in that sense, what do you do with the forward line? How do you deal with this, Adam?
I think there's 2 ways that you can do it, but Kompany's mind works a lot more, in many different ways to mine. I've fed up, well, not fed up, but I don't often get it right. So I think you either put, Amdouni could maybe step forward. We've signed him. He's got 5 goals in 5 games for Switzerland. He's already shown that he can score goals for us in the 2 goals at Forest. The £50 million man, he should be able to do the business. And that's probably what I'd do, and it allows you to then bring Berge into the side in the number 10 role, and maybe get the best of both. But we're going to miss Foster massively. He's got better and better, and on, like Rich said, I couldn't fault anything in his game the other night. It was so sharp. all the way through. He didn't tire. The last 20 minutes, his touch was still impeccable. And we've said it a few times on the show this season, completely different player. And I think he'll be more disappointed than anyone else. That he's now going to obviously lose that momentum. He'll come back in for the Luton and the Chelsea games, but you just hope he can pick up where he's left off on the pitch. I don't think they'll have to tell him anything. He'll know what he's done wrong.
Yeah.
Like I said, learn from it and do it again. I think the other option is obviously bring Jay in and stick with what we've been doing, and hope that he can reach those levels. We know he's got it in him. Especially if he's got a point to prove. He's come in and done that at the beginning of last season. But for me, I would bring Berge in and move Amdouni forward. I don't know if there's any other options that you could think of.
Does your tactical brain do it somewhere else?
Yeah, I think quite similar. It's one of them though. Obviously, Berge was superb coming off the bench. Is that going to be his best? When the game opens up, to maybe bring Berge off the bench. Do you bring Trezor in? Do you bring Jay in? But no, overall, I do agree with Adam. I think the way Berge played the other night, I think he deserves a start. And I'm doing his, number 9, number 10. I think he can play both. So just think you push him on. It's just disappointing for Foster, really, because, it might not come quite back the same. You don't know. It might take a couple of days to get that start. I hope so. Listen, I'm not being negative. You just don't know these things. And, I think it's just that Foster should... it should be like 3 Premier League goals in 4 games. 2 is amazing, but it should be 3 and 4. And yeah, it's a disappointing one. I can't remember seeing a player in my time watching Burnley turn it around like him.
No, me neither.
Looking like
it's not the same person.
And do you know what? This is where company knows more than anybody else. He knows more than us. He knows more about pace. He watched it in the documentary with a mission to Burnley. Foster last season looked like a part footballer, didn't he? He wouldn't have looked out of place playing in the Wigan Amateur League. And now he looks like one of the best strikers in the Premier League. Like he actually looks a different person.
It does.
Like
it looks physically different. His face shape's different.
He's been on a imposter. Like I said, he's he looks like he's been on a he's definitely been in the gym a little bit, and give me some of what he's having anyway at the moment to bulk up that quickly.
Yeah, what a shame. What a shame. Okay, go on, carry on.
No, I'd just say it's been fantastic. So it's just a shame that he's out. But again, it gives opportunities for for Berge to stake his own claim, doesn't he, in that position, or a Rodriguez or a Trezor to come into the team.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, round us up then, Adam. We are off the mark. It's a point on the board. It's a valuable away point against what may very well be a rival towards the bottom of the table. How are you feeling now? We've got that point, and how do you feel about our chances for the rest of the season?
Still confident. Probably did start to wane slightly after the third hammering that we had in a row. But yeah, it just brought so much optimism watching that performance last night. Corrected a lot of the errors. Rich, sitting next to Rich, really made me see some of the tactical side of the game. Obviously, he mentions it on here quite a lot, but you really got the commentary straight away around about the back line being 10 yards further back and talking about the positions of the fullbacks. But it just looked so much more settled. And whether we stick to that, I'm sure we'll experiment at times. But yeah, I'm back to where I was at the start of the season now. Looking forward to the games and the challenges. The weekend, you've already mentioned that Manchester United and Newcastle could be vulnerable. I hope we don't go too gung-ho like we have in some of the earlier games, but I think he's always learning his company, and yeah, really looking forward to the next run of games. And it actually comes a bit thick and fast, which we were used to last season, and it's felt a bit obviously waiting for games to come around this year, especially with the postponement.
Yeah, it's
but yeah, we can really get stuck into it this year before, and hopefully get some more points on the board before our fixtures do turn a bit from. I think it's after we play Chelsea, it's Bournemouth, and there's a few games that you'd expect us to compete well on, and well in. Sorry, and yeah, I'm back to being optimistic self after being miserable for a month or so.
Bless you. What a good ending. Okay, well, that is all we've got time for, listeners. We have been through that Forest game, and we're feeling optimistic here at None and Ever HQ. We'll be back this weekend with the previous show, looking ahead to that Saturday night fixture at home against United, which will hopefully see the Clarets turn it into their first 3 points of the season. We live in hope. If you are watching this on YouTube, please do click that subscribe button and turn on notifications to be kept updated when a new show drops. It does help us build the channel and is much appreciated. Those of you who are listening through the podcast, again, do click on subscribe from your usual podcast provider and never miss an episode. In the meantime, if you've got any comments, suggestions, queries, you know how to get in touch with us. You can drop us a line at podcast@knownandever.net, or you can contact us through your social media channels. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the Known and Never podcast. Until next time.
The Known and Never podcast is brought to you in association with the TalkSport Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting knownandever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners TalkSport. We are proud to be associated with the TalkSport Fan Network.